I see the challenge in the mind going. I see the noodling happening, which is fantastic. Our next speaker has, I think, one of the most brilliant introductions to her bio. If you don't have the app, I'll keep reminding you, if you don't have the app, download the app, log in, make sure that you get a sense of who are the people who are coming to us. And because we're short on time, we're not going to read the full bios. But this is how Kate's, who's coming on next, bio begins. Kate grows things, people, businesses, and movements. Right? Isn't that cool? People, businesses, and movements. And for each of these things to succeed, we only evolve at the speed of trust. For each of these things to succeed, we can only evolve at the speed of trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your abilities, trust in your colleagues, trust in your community, trust in the world. And that's part of the challenge that we all have, is how do we build more bridges to have that trust that allows us to take the leaps that we want to make. And so Kate, I'll ask you to come on, and actually, when she was in background kind of rehearsing her speak, I saw her do something which is cool, and I said we're going to incorporate this. So Kate, you're going to shimmy in as a shimmy out. She promised she would shimmy.
Reggie,
there you go.
Is for you, my shimmy sass. So, and if you don't think that took a lot of trust, I'm just telling you it did. It's so great to see everyone, and for a second, I just want to acknowledge the moment of true grace we started our day with, right? We saw multiple different religions come together in a true moment of harmony. And if that doesn't fuel well-being, I'm not quite sure what does. So I just want to say thank you again for the great start. So Jay talks about sacred economy, and I'm all for that. And the issue is that we're living in a trust crisis. And trust is the underpinning of everything. And trust is what's going to help us build that sacred economy. Now, I want to start with a story. It's 1979. It's a stormy day in El Ceibo, which is a small town in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. And we walk down, we collect our respective compatriots until we number 8. We are known as the El Ceibo Ocho. We are 8 teenage girls who are there to perform vaccines as part of Amigos de las Americas. We continue on and we go to the hospital. We pick up our little cooler that's got our vaccines of polio, diphtheria, and tetanus. We hop into the back of a beat-up 210 truck and head off into a jungle. We're dropped off one by one, accompanied by a male companion who we just met that morning. And then we're informed we're going to pick you up in 8 hours, 5 o'clock. Off we traipse up to go on these trails that we have yet to ever walk. We perform the vaccines to 6 to 7 different villages, and then we walk back down. And we find our way, I don't know how, and we continue back on to the hospital. Now, I start with that because think of the degree of trust along every single step of the way that took. Trust from behalf of the worker, the hospital, me, my parents, who I'm pretty sure weren't quite sure what I was going to be doing, but I'm so glad that I got to experience that because it instilled in me a deep sense of self-trust and trust in other, which has informed how I accept and I show up in the world. And isn't it weird that we have absolutely no qualms putting our lives into the hands of complete strangers when we hop into an Uber, a plane, a Lyft? And when we're welcoming to give our trust to people we've just met, I find it equally peculiar, we tend to distrust the people we know most, especially the environments we spend the majority of our lives in, our companies, our organizations. So we've now shifted from the sharing economy to the stalker economy, and now we're in an economy that's steeped in just deep, deep distrust. And that was just recently explained by a global workforce survey that Edelman shared, in which 50%, think about that, 50% of the people said there wasn't a soul in their companies that they trusted, nor would they ever imagine mentioning a problem for fear of retaliation. And of the remote workforce that answered, 75% felt that they were being monitored by their employers, and worse yet, that the contents of their computers were being rifled through. So how did we get there? Well, because in business, When we have a problem, we throw people, we throw money, and we throw technology. So social capital, financial capital, and then intellectual capital. And I would argue, all terrific forms, however, they're all rendered completely useless unless this one imperative form of capital that's so overlooked is not included, and that is trust. Because you can have all the procedures and the guidelines, protocols, think COVID, your own personal experience and facts, think climate change. Without trust, no move is made. Everything is taken at a standstill. For you see, I believe that we are all stewards, and I know everybody in here believes that we're all stewards of the planet, right? And what we do is we gather together. It's how we keep ourselves alive and the species alive, and we create these entities. They're called businesses and companies, and they have a soul, just as we have souls. And we create that sole purpose, which is to help create and answer problems large and small. Well, when we are lacking in that trust, none of this can take place, none of it whatsoever. And so whenever we say that business has to activate, which we've all been talking about, 3 fingers pointing back at us. We're the ones who activate that business, right? We're the leaders. We have to ignite the lifeblood of the company. That's what the workforce is really hungry for. That's what we want too, to know that we matter, what we're doing matters, what we're building together matters. So how do we do this? Well, I gotta tell you, how can we possibly expect anyone to trust us and follow us if we don't trust ourselves? And so I'm gonna bring out what I say I'm Betty Business and Jenny Juju, and I'm gonna bring out Jenny Juju right now. I'm gonna tell you what we have to do is we have to go deep within, and we've gotta ignite spirit, and we've gotta bring the sole purpose of business activated. Because in so doing, we then will make sure that we follow through on what we say, and that is one way of creating trust. Now, curious, trustworthy leaders, are curious. They ask a lot of questions, and then they stick around, and they answer, and they listen respectfully, and they hear what's said as well as what's not said. Because they understand in building a trustworthy relationship, they're gonna get in that muck. It's gonna get ugly, it's gonna get uncomfortable. And they don't leave, they stay. They take a look at the world through what I call dragonfly eyes, meaning that they take into consideration the global workforce as well as the 5 different generations we're now working with under one roof. And in so doing, they're better able to make informed decisions and create a platform that's truly, truly steeped in trust. Because when I'm aligned in my truth and you're aligned in yours, there's no room for ego. That's the problem. Ego gets in the way all the time. And as such, then, we can move from me to we to us. Now, what I'm going to be doing is providing some examples, because I think a lot of times we talk lofty and up here, and I want to anchor it, because there are companies and people and leaders who are doing this, Lego being one. A few years ago, it was very beleaguered, and it took on a new CEO. There had been extraordinary distrust, and they had lost their purpose. They completely couldn't explain what their direction was, which is hard to believe, because Lego's pretty clear, right? I mean, it's a block, it's a toy. But as always, we try to make things more difficult than they are, right? It can be this simple, but we don't trust simple. But fortunately, the new CEO of Lego did. And he had a gut feeling that there was a nugget in the past that if he was able to bring it and tease it out to the future, he could help ignite the potential of what laid ahead. Secondly, he also recognized, wow, we've decimated our audience. And so as such, we no longer have a trusted group who believes in us. So he spent 2 years on a listening tour, rebuilding those relationships with internal and external stakeholders. And he came to recognize, yeah, I was right. It's all in the name, because Lego means play well. And isn't innovation just an overcomplicated adult term for play? It was created so that children of all ages could learn and grow by utilizing curiosity and logic, poet and quant ignited. And as such, he then recognized that there's a huge growth potential, and we can then expand out and create new product lines that'll grow along and age along with our audience. Meaning, There will always be a room, whatever your age, at the Lego table. And there's this amazing, deep-rooted community based in trust that is the Lego community. Now, to be that humble, you have to have extraordinary courage. You need to be really comfortable saying, I don't know, I need help, and then getting out of the way and actually accepting the help. Trustworthy leaders are very, very transparent, and as such, their workforce rewards it back to them. And they pay attention. They recognize that they need times to get refueled. And they also recognize that as a way to give others an opportunity for growth. Now, this is something that Warby Parker had put into play because they came to realize the necessity for autonomy. Because you see, autonomy, it presumes trust. Because in order to have trust, you have to give trust away. And this was something that they did from the get-go by actually putting the future of the company in the hands of the employees. And what they do is they go and they actually rebuild and they determine what the company is going to be working on through their process called Warble, and it's a crowdsourced effort. Now, the other thing they're doing is, by doing this, they're flattening the entire organization. They're making it more agile, more flexible, more responsive versus reactive. They're building out teams that are based on collaboration, cooperation, and frankly, interdepartmental. No more of those ivory towers that were based on karmic retributions. And with this autonomy, they are recognizing the individual genius of each of the employees. And the employees, in kind, respond by giving great new ideas over and over again. And they have to trust that the leaders are going to be okay with it if they make a mistake, that they're not going to lose their jobs. This is something Warby Parker has proven time and time again. So that leads me to all of us right now. Here we are, right? Do you trust yourselves? Do you actually know yourself, this person you call you? And I ask because I think we all so flippantly think, oh yeah, I know me, I got myself down. But do you really? When was the last time you asked yourself, what are my values? Because so often we get stuck in the ones that we very first started with. And it's important because leaders lead from where they are, not from an office, a title, a degree. Leaders lead from their hearts, from their souls, from their internal compasses. Leaders lead from who they are. And those who do succeed. And those who don't. In the long run, every time. So I would ask over these next few days, amongst this amazing city and these beautiful human beings and this art, that you take the time to actually ask yourself, do I trust myself? What are my values? What is my purpose? Am I actually doing it? And then, what actions could I take that could actually increase trust? Could I say, I don't know more? Could I ask for help more? Could I frankly just and let someone else fill the space? Because when you ignite your trust, you encourage others to do the same, because we're all mirrors for one another. And as for those values, we're going to need those, because values are going to be our true north compass points as we go through these very, very murky waters. We know that values get tested during times of adversity, but I also know that when you make a decision and you do the right thing, especially when it's hard, and it's based in those values, well, that's when trust is created. That's when belief is created. And that's when we can create this community and culture that once again will be trustworthy. So I would ask for you to take the time to set your path. Take the time to set it straight, because we really need you, all of us, to lead us into this next economy, the trust economy. Because without any internal change, no outer change is going to happen. And without collective change, no change matters. I thank you for entrusting me with your time.